Now, if you want to know what the opposite of the Kansas City Chiefs looks like, look no further than the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was an organization that was one win away from reaching the Super Bowl just a few years ago. But that was then, and this is now. They lost a lot of players in the offseason. Nick Foles, Leonard Fournette on offense, and then defensively, who didn't they lose? In the secondary, they said peace out to A.J. Bouye and Ronnie Harrison. And then from the defensive line, they're without Calais Campbell, Marcel Darius, and Yannick Ngakoue. So for as many players as they lost this offseason, believe me, I think they're going to lose even more football games. They're going to be so painfully horrible with what is easily the worst roster in all of the NFL. 24 rookies and second-year players. That means expectations in Jacksonville really aren't going to be that high. So maybe that buys GM Dave Caldwell and head coach Doug Marrone some more time. The new play caller in town is Jake Gruden. And as offensive coordinator, the guy's going to have really little to work with. You got DJ Chark coming off a Pro Bowl appearance, but he is the only returning player with any Pro Bowl experience. You do have newly signed tight end Tyler Eifert, who was once a Pro Bowler, but he's been hurt for so long that nobody really knows what to expect from him, though I think that he's actually going to be pretty good. Last year, it was Minshew mania. It was awesome. But Mr. Mustache running for his life in a game of backyard football with DJ Chark and a broken down Tyler Eifert just isn't enough to scare any defenses. I would say, though, if there is a bright spot, it's that I expect Jags' second-year defensive end Josh Allen to have a breakout year. And not the Josh Allen in Buffalo. The Jags have their own Josh Allen, who quietly had 10.5 sacks last year, which was more than Max Crosby and Nick Bosa. But yeah, really other than that, nothing to work with. They should be underdogs in every single game, honestly. 0-16, I think it sounds like a reality, but I'll be nice and give them a fun division win at home against the Texans. Say it's week 9. I think Minshew, yeah, he's a fun player, but I'm not sure if he's a franchise quarterback. He's really here being set up to fail so that the team's next quarterback, who probably goes to Clemson, ends up on the team. And that's going to be Trevor Lawrence. So another Clemson quarterback in their division now, because DeShaun Watson, the quarterback for the Texans, just days before kickoff was extended long-term by this Houston team. It was a no-brainer move for them, but with the moves they've been making, you'd think they probably don't have any brains at all. Now, I don't know how Bill O'Brien is still the head coach, and I especially don't know how he doubles as the team's general manager. But nevertheless, he is. And he was forced to trade away a top 2 wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins because of a fractured relationship. And in return, he got a banged-up David Johnson on a bad contract. But, maybe he can prove himself this year. So instead of throwing the ball to Hopkins, this year, Deshaun's going to be throwing the ball to Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills, and Devin Fuller, which is a good group that unfortunately still has an injury history of their own. Now, this offensive line, it struggled to keep Watson upright in the pocket in the past, but I thought they were decent enough last year, and some of the sacks, honestly, were because Watson held the football too long. But then, obviously, the two teams in this division, it's obviously the Texans and the Colts who had the most talent, but DeShaun Watson and J.J. Watt may be the most special players, and they cover up a lot of the mistakes for this Texans team. You just can't ask them to do everything all the time. Watt is going to need more from that pass rush. That help on the edge is going to really help him out a lot, though I do think he'll get some from a very strong linebacker group headlined by Zach Cunningham and Bernardrick McKinney. They got all 4 of those linebackers back, so good for them there. And then Bradley Roby and Justin Reed are solid, but they're going to need more help from the others in the secondary if they want to be a formidable team stopping the pass. Now, their season honestly will depend on how they open up with that 8-game stretch they have to start the season. They'll face 5 playoff teams and a Steelers team who should honestly be better with Ben this year. Fortunately, they'll have the rebuilding Jags twice, but even then, they still pose a threat, being a familiar division rival. Now, they've been AFC South champions 4 of the last 5 years, but Tennessee, they're surging, and the Colts are actually now the team that's better equipped to make a run now that Houston is looking like a team that has no identity with players constantly leaving. So I think the Texans finish in third at 7-9. Their 3 losses early on against the Chiefs, Ravens, and Steelers have them starting 0-3. And then after consecutive wins over the Vikings and Jags, I think they lose to Tennessee, then beat Green Bay, but before unthinkably losing to the Jaguars out of the bye week, and then this team goes like, what is going on? But then, maybe a couple nice wins against Cleveland, New England, and then Indy, coupled up with a gimme win over the Bengals in Week 16. I think it puts them at 7-9 in my book, simply because of the magic of DeShaun Watson. Now, if Watson had a GM like the Colts did, then maybe things would be a different story. The Colts are one of the smarter teams in the league. Last offseason, they went on an expensive shopping spree, putting together a roster that was definitely built to win the division. But then all of a sudden, Andrew Luck drops a bomb on them that, he's unexpectedly retiring, and then injuries to T.Y. Hilton and others really derailed any of their hopes. So to get better for 2020, they traded a first-round pick for DeForest Buckner, who is an absolute dog and a great player up front that definitely addresses one of their needs. However, I don't think it's unfair to say that Buckner probably won't shine as much as he did last year because, the Colts don't have a D-line like the Niners did. But overall, Buckner joins Darius Leonard in a Colts defense that should improve in 2020, so long as they can get consistent production from the secondary. Now, Kenny Moore, one of the best nickel corners in the game, but more will be needed from the corners and from the young safety duo of Malik Hooker and Khari Willis, who will be without key sub Marvell Tell from USC and Crespi Carmelite High School. Offensively, a reunion of sorts with new quarterback Phillip Rivers, who was coached by Frank Reich when he was an assistant with the Chargers. And then Phil, he's going to have Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, and that's a solid duo right there, running behind a guy in Quentin Nelson who is really once in a generation when it comes to the offensive line, and a guard that anchors a unit that's just super tough up front. The only thing, the Colts last year, 30th in passing yards, and Phillip Rivers, he definitely looked his age last year, and what was for sure a down year for him. So the passing game, it could be a concern or a question mark, something that you don't know of to be certain. But I really, really do like the fact that they brought in Michael Pittman Jr. from USC to be a physical wideout next to T.Y. Hilton. Now, those two probably will be good enough for Phillip Rivers to get things done and be a team that's at the top, but not the number one team in the division, because their schedule isn't all that easy. In fact, one of the 11 teams who will play a league high of 7 playoff teams. Their ceiling, I think, is as Super Bowl contenders making a deep playoff run with a veteran quarterback in Rivers, but their floor is in the cellar of this division. And me personally, I've got them going 8-8. Road losses to the Bears, Browns, Lions, Texans, Raiders, and Steelers, and then home losses to the Ravens and Titans. 8-8, not good enough to make the playoffs, unfortunately, for the Colts, but I might be wrong there. The real story, though, of this AFC South was last year's Tennessee Titans. What a ride. Start off 2-4 with Marcus Mariota, and then Ryan Tannehill takes over, earns the Comeback Player of the Year award because he helped the team win 7 of their last 10 to earn a wildcard spot. And then the magic, it carries into the postseason. You got a pair of road wins, ending Tom Brady's reign in New England, and then you knock the MVP in Lamar Jackson and his one-seeded Ravens out of the playoffs entirely before they can even win a game. So they were ultimately just one win short of a Super Bowl trip, losing to Kansas City, but the pieces are there for Tennessee to get back to exactly where they want to be, and then maybe even farther than that. They lock up Tannehill, locked up Derrick Henry for 4 years and $50 million after a season in which Henry led the NFL in carries, yards, and touchdowns. So there will be people questioning, though, whether it was a fluke year and whether Tannehill and Derrick Henry locking them up made sense, especially with Derrick Henry having a lot of miles on his body. Would that be the right move? We'll see. But for me, in the immediate future, I think these moves are definitely going to pay off in a major way, because this is a team who averaged 5 yards a carry on the ground offensively, and while they lost Dion Lewis, they picked up Darrington Evans in the 3rd round to be their new complementary change of pace back. And then A.J. Brown did his thing as a rookie wideout with 605 yards and 5 touchdowns in his last 6 games. So he looks like a number 1 wideout, but the question really is who's going to be the number 2. You got Adam Humphries in the slot, but Corey Davis has been a bust so far. Now, the good thing is the Titans, with their offense, they can continue to use their tight ends and play action like they did. And with Jonnu Smith, they do have one of the best tight ends after the catch. Now, defensively, they'll miss Jarrell Casey, but Jeffrey Simmons looked great as a rookie as soon as he was healthy. And then Logan Ryan, he's gone, but that secondary, they still got an all-pro safety in Kelvin Byard. And over at corner, they're going to need Malcolm Butler, Adoree Jackson, and second-round pick Christian Fulton from LSU to be better than what they were last year. And Vic Beasley signing a one-year, $9.5 million deal was supposed to be the key offseason move, but the real help to the Titans' pass rush comes with Jadeveon Clowney signing a one-year deal. That's a guy who, with motivation issues, might be a concern, but he's playing for a long-term contract. So I think the Titans are hoping that the results Clowney brings are more productive than they are on the opposite side of that. And his disruption on that defensive line will be huge. I do think this team starts off 2-1, but things get really interesting because by week 4, their schedule becomes an absolute gift from the NFL schedule makers. Because from week 4 through week 10, the Titans only leave Tennessee once, and their one and only road game in that time span comes off the heels of their week 7 bye. So out of the bye, get this, they travel into Cincinnati for week 8, and we know that beating the Bengals off a bye should be very easy. And then their next road game will be in week 11 at Baltimore. That's a tough one. But the good news for Tennessee is that it comes after a very winnable week 10 Thursday night game. So it means they'll have 10 days to prepare for a Ravens team that they already beat on the road in the playoffs last year. So I think this is a 12-4 team at the end of the day with key home wins over Pittsburgh and Buffalo, some gimme wins from the crappy teams they have on their schedule, and a surprising road win against the Ravens.